Yes. Cool. All right. Natalia says everything is okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Great. I'm happy. Good morning. 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 All right. So, and once again, please do communicate during our first session, because it's not going to be a lecture, I hope, and I'd like us to do a number of tasks together. Okay. So I think that it's going to be great if you participate. All right, I'm going to start demonstrating my slides now. And again, if there is a problem, please let me know. Okay, so I hope that you can all see my slides now. And here we go. All right, so as I said, today we're going to talk about the speaking module of the state exam. And you can see that the name of our conversation today is EGE Speaking, how to balance teaching and testing. It means that we're not going to talk so much about the format itself, because I think that you're well aware of the format, but we're going to be talking more about some issues our students have with the speaking module of this exam, and also how we can help them solve these issues with help some useful activities. Yeah, so here's the agenda for today. Yeah, so first, we're going to just go very quickly through the types of tasks and some competences that they imply. We'll see where you are there and how much you can remember about these tasks. And after that, for each of the 4 parts of the speaking module, we're going to look and also try out a few activities that, from my experience, can help you, help your students develop some important skills, useful skills for these tasks. And also, we're always looking at opportunities of a nice overlap, you know, because we never have enough time, we think, yeah, for exam preparation. We'll see how we can exploit each task to help different speaking activities, and also to build a little bridge between the speaking module and also some other modules of the exam, you know. So we're going to try and kill quite a lot of poor birds with one stone today. All right. So first of all, let's see where we are with the speaking module. And could you please look at the questions here on the slide and just say what you think in the chat. So how many parts? What is the highest score, and so on? Yeah, so just think about them. I'm sure you're well aware, but let's make sure everybody's comfortable. I'm going to stop the demonstration for a second. Okay, sorry, because the chat didn't want to appear. I'm going to go back to the slide now. Here we go. Yeah, so someone said 4 parts. Yeah, okay, Ina said 4 parts, true, right? Okay, what is this highest score one can get for speaking, for the whole speaking module? I'm also waiting for your answers in the chat. 15. Only Ina is working. Come on, everyone. 20. Marina is right. Okay, so the high score is 20. Yeah, that's right. So you can get 20 points all in all. How many tasks are there in the speaking section? I've already said it, but okay, thanks very much. Yes, there are 4 parts. And what are they? Let's try to remember together. What's the first one? The most exciting one. The first part is what? That's interesting, Marina. But I think, yeah, okay, it's reading aloud. Okay, so I always think, I don't know why reading aloud is actually part of the speaking module, because it's not really about speaking that much. It's about voicing a written text, but anything. Anyway, reading aloud is the first one. Yeah, how was the second one? The second one is, yeah, questions. Yeah, direct questions, right? The third one is, that's right, describing a picture. So look at the chat box, okay, everyone, because the answers are coming in. And yeah, it's like a monologue where the aim is to describe a picture, and the speaker. Irina, sorry, could you turn off your mic, please? Okay. Thank you. And the fourth task is also a monologue where the students have to compare and contrast the pictures. Exactly. Yeah. So see, the nature of the exam itself is not really communicative because there is no conversation. Yeah. So basically, they're all monologues, but still there are a few issues that our students might have with the tasks of the exam. So now we're going to think about the issues. Okay, so what are the issues? Again, here I'd like you to voice your opinions in the chat box because you know your students better. Okay, so when you prepare your students for the oral part, what issues do your students usually face, if any? If there are any difficulties. Again, could you please write something in the chat? Well, this is interesting what Natalia is saying, no ideas for picture descriptions. And I agree, absolutely, because very often it's not the level of the language itself, but it's the level of ideas, both for the oral module and for the written module that you're going to focus on later today. But it is very difficult in intonation and questions, and also in reading aloud. Yeah, so some, maybe not only the intonation, but also, you know, some features of connected speech generally. So it's difficult to talk flexibly for a long time. 5 sentences. How long should the answer be? Lexis, a special plan. Right. Well, I agree with basically all the points that you've just mentioned in the chat box. I'm going to show you my list, my clouds with issues that I've noticed with my students. So lack of vocab, so agree with Lexis, and nothing to say. So basically it's the level of ideas and the level of vocabulary. Then fear of making mistakes. And it's not only about the state exam, it's generally probably one of the main barriers when we talk about our students speaking in English, because they are sort of used to being penalized for errors they make at school. And of course, it's not the most comfortable feeling in the world. That's why, you know, sometimes they say, nah, I'm gonna be silent, or they're just afraid of speaking at length, and they sort of stop after each sentence and look at you. Maybe you've noticed that. Looking for your approval or a nod or something. And of course, we understand that they're not going to have this privilege in the situation of an actual exam. And also wrong formats. Interestingly enough, as an expert, I noticed that sometimes you listen to someone's very, very good English, you know, when we listen to the students' answers as experts, and you can hear very, very good English, high-level English, like C1 definitely, but this student might fail the speaking task just because they don't know the format, or just decided that the format of the task is not that important. So, you know, here we should sort of try to strike the balance between speaking in line with the format, which is suggested by the exam, and also demonstrating quite good English doing that. Okay, so it doesn't have to be superb, but it has to be quite good and accurate. Irina also says that very often the students are nervous that there's not enough time there, and I absolutely agree here, because we know that there are time limits, yeah, and it's not that important probably for task 1, which is quite basic, and task 2, which gives the students plenty of time for formulating their 5 questions, but probably it relates to tasks 3 and 4, which are the most challenging, as it seems to be, and there the students have the limit of 2 minutes, and they have to cover all the points of tasks 3 and 4 in 2 minutes, and very often they fail to finish their little monologues just because they have to think about something they want to say next. Yeah? So the time might be an issue, I agree. Okay. Now the question is how we can help our students solve these issues. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to look at each task of the oral part, just to quickly look through the format and the requirements. If you have any questions there, please feel free to ask in the chat. And then we'll see what activities might be useful for developing the competences, the soft skills that might help our students do the tasks better. Okay? Yeah, so please feel free to write in the chat box all the time, and I'm looking there. The chat is in front of me. Okay, so task one, ta-da! Exciting, reading aloud. And here we usually have a short excerpt, and it looks like this. Yeah, so this is more or less the length of a text. And according to, in terms of the style and the register, it's sort of popular, scientific, not really academic, not at all, but not very colloquial. So there might be some tricky words there, difficult words, and usually there are like 2 or 3 the students traditionally have difficulties with. Someone's mic is on again, so could you please turn it off, because we can hear the background noise. And the students have only a minute and a half, yeah, to prepare the reading. And then they also have a minute and a half to read the text, yeah? And they have to finish reading the text in a minute and a half. So usually it's not a big problem, and the students sort of get through this task quite well, but sometimes we do give 0 for reading because it's not really clear. Let's see what the task suggests. Okay, so what the requirements are. First of all, yeah, the task achievement, and here you can look at the main criteria of the task. The maximum point is 1, so I just want to remind you, which already gives us a few things to consider actually. If you see that your student is really, really bad at reading aloud, you know, things do happen, and maybe your student has never really been practicing reading aloud much. That's why if you see that you have no time to actually prepare the student for this task, you might think, well, maybe it shouldn't be your priority, because the maximum number of points is just 1, so it's either 0 or 1. So this task can't really affect the overall score. So you think, okay, maybe I should prioritize tasks 3 and 4, which give 7 points each and 14 points all in all, and task 5, which gives 5 points. Yeah, so this is the first thing to think about. Maybe you don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And here are some very rough criteria. I mean, you can always see that the specific criteria on the FIPI website, which is the main website for all the people who deal with EGE. But generally, what we're looking for is clear reading, where we can understand what the student is saying, yeah? And very often experts listen to the text without looking at the text, you know. And if I can clearly understand what the person is saying without looking at the text that is in front of me, it's already a good sign, yeah? Then we're also looking at meaningful pauses, yeah? So not pauses because I pause after every single word to think how to read the next word, but meaningful pauses after more or less finished bits and pieces of ideas. We're looking at the meaningful sentence stress, yeah? And some main features of connected speech. When I say main features, well, we're not really going to be too strict here as experts, but we might be looking at linking, yeah? We might be looking at some cases of assimilation, or maybe, you know, mostly basically linking, you know, between the words, like there is, there are, yeah? When we say r, yeah, at the junction of 2 words, and so on and so forth. But here we're not going to be too strict, because otherwise all the students are going to get a 0. So we understand that, and we're just looking at, you know, from the point of view of the common sense here, if we talk about connected speech. And important that a student can make more than 5 phonological mistakes. in these tasks. So if there are more than 5 phonological mistakes, it's a 0 automatically, and experts do count errors. Yeah, we have to. So when we say phonological mistakes, this could be a word which is pronounced incorrectly. This could be the wrong stress, sentence stress. This could be the wrong word stress, of course. A lot of pauses throughout the text that are not meaningful. So they're all phonological errors, okay? And if the reading is not clear. Also, sometimes the students just see the wrong thing. You know, for example, the verb in the text is give, but they say gives, yeah, like they add this additional sound at the end of the word, and it's also a phonological mistake, so they can't really add anything. If they don't pronounce the final sound, yeah, so again, the form that you see in the text is gives, but the student says give, it's also a phonological mistake, yeah, so they have to accurately produce the text. In terms of the requirements, there are a couple of other important things that probably you should know if you work with EGE students. So the student will get 0 points also if they skip one line or part of the text. You know, sometimes when the student is trying to follow the text, they just skip a line in the middle. They just can't see it, and they start reading the next line. So this is not very good because they sort of skip part of the text and it stops being understandable. Yeah, that's why it's a reason for 0 points. Sometimes the students don't have enough time to read the whole text, though with task 1, it doesn't happen very often. So if the student does not read, you can see it on the screen, yeah, more than 2 words at the end of the text, then that's 0 points. If just 2 words, 2 words maximum, and everything else is fine, then the students will get 1 point anyway. And I have already said about 5 phonological mistakes. Okay, someone is saying something in the chat. Is it okay to self-correct? Yes, it's fine. I wouldn't say that it's the best thing in the world, but if they self-correct once, it's fine, and the rest of the reading is good quality. Because we understand that we all, it's like now when I'm speaking, I slip sometimes and I self-correct, so not a big deal. The expert is not going to penalize the students for that. If it happens many times while the student is reading, it might affect the overall understanding. Then the quality of the whole reading might go down a little. Someone's mic is on again. Sorry, I'm going to say it sometimes, okay? So it's just every week we can all hear someone now. Okay, so these are the main things about task 1. If you have any other questions, again, keep posting in the chat. I'm sorry, could you all again check the mic, because I could hear some background noise. Now, well, we are going to look at one task, as I promised, which I really, really like, and I talk about it quite a lot, which I think can really help teachers prepare the students for reading aloud and improve reading aloud a lot. Because I think that if you just ask the students to read aloud on a regular basis, it's not really developmental, okay? Because to be able to read aloud better, the students need to see a good model. I always think that no matter what you ask the students to do, the students need to see or hear a good model of what a successful answer or successful reading in our situation should look like. Okay, and I'm going to show you, and we're gonna try it together, an activity. Some of you might know it because I love it. I keep telling you about this activity. Is silent shadowing. Okay, and when you prepare students for reading aloud, this is another very important idea, I think. You don't always have to use only the exam materials, yeah, in different collections of exam materials or in course books, which are aimed at this task, okay? So only the texts that are given as task 1 of the oral part of the state exam. You can actually use any very short text. I wouldn't really practice using long text because it's time consuming, but every more or less short text, and just use any chances to read aloud sometimes. Ideally, it's a good idea to use texts which also have the audio, okay? Because in course books, we very often have texts with a track, yeah, with a listening version. And then it's very, very good because this is exactly what we need to show the students a good model of reading. If you want to practice reading with the students using a text which doesn't have a track, yeah, with it, which doesn't have an audio file, then there is always a very good solution. You can record yourself reading this text aloud, following all the criteria which the task suggests, or you can ask your colleague to record their voices so that it's a different voice reading a text aloud, again, following all the requirements of the task. But I do believe that a listening version of a text for the students is important if you want to show a good model of reading. We're going to use this task. So I'm sure you recognize it, and it's taken from Spotlight actually, but it could be taken from any book where you can find exam materials. Surprisingly, you can see that it's not a reading task, it's a listening task, yeah? And you know that listening task 1 of the exam consists of a few very short texts pronounced by different speakers. And I always think that when you do exam tasks with the students, when you practice exam tasks, it's a waste of material if you just use it for its direct purposes. And I always think that it's a good idea to give a task a second life, sometimes a third life, many lives, to also use the material to practice or develop some other useful skills that the students need. In this situation, you definitely save time, and another advantage is that you don't have to look around trying to find extra materials. Yeah? You can use one piece of text for different purposes. So let's imagine that we have done the listening tasks. So we've done what this task suggests, listening task 1, and now you want to use the same texts, actually one, also practice reading aloud. We're going to use the text pronounced by speaker 1, okay? And we're going to do this task together now, okay? So here is the script. It's not the whole text said by speaker 1, but just a couple of sentences for our purposes. In your lesson, you also don't have to use the whole text because it's quite long. You can always use 2 or 3 sentences just to focus intensively on reading aloud. And it's already going to be useful work, yeah? So you can do it basically in every lesson when you practice listening with the students. So we're going to listen to speaker 1, to these 2 sentences. Could you please listen to speaker 1? The task says once again, because we assume that we've done the listening task, and highlight the stressed words. I'm going to ask you to do this task now. So just type the words that you think are stressed in this text in the chat box, okay? You can all type them. We'll see if the stressed words that you found are going to be the same or different, yeah? So we're talking about sentence stress. So once again, listen and type the stressed words in the short text in the chat box. Ready? If you can't hear, let me know in the chat box, okay? Because we know that technology is not always reliable, but should be fine. Okay, so here we go.
Speaker My boyfriend always wants to stay in and watch sports events on TV. It's really annoying because I find watching sport really boring.
Yeah, so you see someone says always. Stay in, TV, really boring, boyfriend. Okay, so all in all, I think if we collect all these words in the order of their appearance in the text, this is something that is stressed. When you say stay in, again, notice whether both words stay and in are stressed or just in. We're gonna listen. Natalia is just smiling. We're gonna listen to it again. Just check once again. Yeah, you don't have to type anything now because we have an idea already. Yeah, but just check your stressed words. Once again.
Speaker. My boyfriend always wants to stay in and watch sports events on TV. It's really annoying because I find watching sport really boring.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I have. I'm going to show you so something that's red is definitely stressed in this text. Okay, so what do you think? Does this text sound natural or not very natural? What do you think? What's your impression? Natural? Let's see what other people think. Quite natural, yeah, so quite all good. Quite natural, quite okay. Yeah, I agree with quite okay. So it's not 100% natural speech because here the speed is quite low and the stressed words, the keywords, yeah, are really, really pronounced very clearly, okay? When people speak in real life, they don't really talk like that. So sometimes they speed up, you know, sometimes they're quiet. And in terms of features of connected speech, this little text, the text that the exam usually gives us, yeah, they're not 100% natural. But these texts are quite good for our purposes, yeah. If a student finds it difficult to read aloud, these little texts from listening task 1 gives a good, clear model. Yeah, maybe not 100% natural, someone's mic is on, but quite natural, and you can hear the stressed words very, very well, okay? So we're going light here without overloading the students with a completely natural text, which might be really difficult for untrained ears, okay? So this is the first part of the first stage of silent shadowing. So we've identified the stressed words, okay? Now, we are going to listen to this text once again. And now the task is to read the text with the speaker. Now you know what words are stressed, following the speed of the speaker, yeah, trying to keep up, stressing the important words that are highlighted already, but silently. So it means that you're not just sitting looking at this task like that, at the text, yeah, but you're articulating the whole text, imagining you're really reading aloud, but you're not really pronouncing any words, yeah? So you're not making any noises and the speaker's voice is in your head, yeah? So you're gonna do something like that. It's very funny if you look at each other. Look at the text, but it's fine. We're gonna try it with you now. Of course, I can't control the process, okay? We're not gonna switch on the cameras, no, but promise me you're gonna try and do this task properly, okay? So read the 2 sentences silently with the speaker, articulating everything, yeah? So you're pretending you're the speaker. Like this. So I'm switching on the sound, do the task. Oops.
Speaker. My boyfriend always wants to stay in and watch. It's really annoying because I find watching sport really boring.
Let's try to do it once again. Do the same.
Speaker. My boyfriend always wants to stay in and watch sports events on TV. It's really annoying because I find watching sport really boring.
Done? Yeah? So you can do it with the students a few times, 2 or 3 times. And remember that this is the text the student already knows, and you've done listening a few times, which is also good for the ears, right? And at this stage, it's very important that the speaker's voice is in the student's head, because there is this direct connection between something we hear and something we say after that. And when we hear someone's accent or someone's voice, someone's manner of speaking a lot, we tend to start imitating it, okay? And it's quite a natural process. That's why you can do this stage, silent reading, 2 or 3 times, yeah? Well, depending on how easy or difficult it is for the student, because it's, sometimes it's not easy first time, yeah? The next stage, you're going to listen to speaker 1 once again, but now you're going to read aloud with the speaker. Again, to keep up with the speaker's tempo, to stress the important words, to make pauses where the speaker makes pauses, and so on and so forth. So again, try to say it as close to the speaker's manner as possible, right? Let's try to do it, because I want you to go through all the stages. Again, don't turn on the mic, okay? Because there are quite a lot of participants now, and it's going to be chaotic, but try to do it in front of your own computer, okay? So now reading aloud with the voice. Once again.
Speaker. My boyfriend always wants to stay in and watch sports events on TV. It's really annoying because I find watching sport really boring.
And again, at this stage, you can also do it a few times. Alisa, thank you very much. A few times. When you see that the student can really keep up with the speaker, you stop the stage, okay? And finally, that's the final stage of silent shadowing and shadowing. You turn off the speaker and you ask the student to try reading aloud on their own without the speaker's voice, yeah, without anything. And you will see that, I'm sure you will see the effect after these stages, because first the student has seen a very good model of pronouncing the text, of saying what's written. Then you've done the silent shadowing. The silent shadowing stage is really, really important, because it's the concentration on the speaker's voice, and it does penetrate, okay? Then you've tried to say it. So we go from the awareness stage, when we understand how to do things, to the actual production stage when we read aloud with the speaker, but still the speaker is still helping us during the stage, and then we do it alone, okay? With all this preparation, should really, really be effective. Well, at least I can see the results. Sometimes, I noticed that I start reading this text like the speaker after practicing it with my students, because I can hear the speaker's voices in my head all the time. So here's the procedure for you. Notice that you can do this task only with the text that the students already know in terms of the meaning, okay? So either after you've done the exam listening task or any other listening task, so the students know what the text is about. Because silent shadowing is intensive work with the language of the text. And if it's a completely new text, it's going to be difficult. The students can't concentrate on the meaning and the form at the same time, okay? So you use only the text that the students are familiar with already. It could be a reading task, if you like, from any kinds of materials, but then it's a good idea to record your voice to give the students a good model, okay? So there should always be a listening version. Then after you've done some tasks, on the text, you start doing the actual activity. Yeah, that's why it says revisit the text for language work. Intonation is language. Yeah, and you can see the things that we've just done with you. Yeah, here are the stages. I'll let you look through them for a couple of seconds. If something is not clear, let me know. So if you look at point E, I mean, if you want to do something else with the text, because listening text, the scripts of listening texts, they are also quite a good source of lexis sometimes. And if you notice that the students are having problems with vocabulary, like there's not enough vocabulary and there's lack of time as usual, so you don't have enough time to feed a lot of vocabulary, so you can actually give this text another life and ask the students to remember what the text is about and to retell it or summarize what the speaker said. And they're going to be able to do that after so many repetitions of the text, and some collocations, patterns, they're going to be there already. In an inconspicuous way, they're going to get in. So that's another bonus. Yeah. So when you keep repeating the same text, you also memorize collocations and bits and pieces of phrases and so on. So it could be, you know, another extension. Okay. So this is a procedure, once again, called silent shadowing, which I find really, really, really effective in terms of helping the students read better aloud. And once again, I'm going to stress it once again, it's important first to hear a good model, because if I can't imagine good reading, I can't do good reading, okay? Then don't ask me to do that. Otherwise, it's too abstract. If you just explain, you need to make pauses here and there, you need to stress the words. Unless I hear how people do that, it's very difficult for me as a student to do the same, okay? So models should be everywhere when you teach the students. Right, we're gonna move on, yeah? Again, use the chat when you need it. And we're gonna look at task 2 now. And as you said, that's 5 direct questions, and usually there is an advertisement. And the students have to look at some information and ask for more details covering the points that are given here in the task. Yeah, like ask about tuition fee, course location, duration of the course, special clothes, blah blah blah. Important that the students can't ask about other things. Another important thing is that when they ask the first question, they have to include quite a lot of context. So, for example, they can't just say how much are the lessons. They could, but it would be good to say, yeah, how much are the breakdowns lessons, because you know, otherwise it's not clear what they're talking about. So the first question should include quite a lot of context. Or they can't say something like, how much is it? You know, because I can't understand what it is, right? So the first question should be very specific to the advertisement. And then after that, you can just say, where are the lessons going to take place? You know, how long is the course? And we understand what we're talking about, yeah? But a lot of context in the first one. While you're looking at this task, I want to answer the question that Olga posted in the chat, because it's still on task 1. Is it possible to find a text with audio where stressed words are shown in the script? Olga, I don't think it's easy, yeah? At least I've never seen it, but I don't think it's a problem, because if it's a text where the words are stressed clearly, then it's easy for you to do it, yeah? So you just listen and underline the words for yourself. And, you know, if it's slightly different with different people, it doesn't matter, because you will hear the main prominent words anyway, okay? And it's already good for the student. When you do silent shadowing, it's important that the student does it on their own, okay? It's their job. Because you develop their ability to listen, right? So they should do that. But no, I don't think I've ever seen scripts like that. But they might exist, but I don't think it's important, you know, to try and look for them because it takes a lot of time. Okay, back to task 2. I don't know. We're not going to discuss this task in detail because I think it's quite straightforward. Okay, it's not very difficult for the students. The only thing is that all the 5 questions have to be direct questions. Indirect questions are also accepted if there are no grammar errors in them, but students tend to make errors in indirect questions. So they change the word order. And if the question is not grammatically correct, then it's not going to be accepted, okay? That's why, I mean, to make it easier, I always ask my students to ask 5 direct questions. And another thing which is good, they don't have to paraphrase much here. There is no requirement like that. So for example, if point 3 says duration of the course, I can easily say, what's the duration of the course? Yeah, and this question is going to be accepted. Maybe it's not the most natural one, but it's okay, all right? Evening classes, are there any evening classes? So you don't have to paraphrase the wording which is given in these points. And a few important points, again, about task 2. So something that can cause a 0. It's about question 1, remember? So it has to be very specific and they have to say what they are asking about. They can't use words like it, they, how much are the breakdowns lessons in your studio? Yeah? So it has to be very specific. You see, if there is a grammatical error, then the questions are going to be accepted. If there are a lot of errors, they affect the meaning, it's going to be a 0. The questions have to be grammatically correct. Notice that the experts are, again, are trying not to be too strict here. And if there is a wrong article or a wrong preposition, but everything else is clear and they clearly understand what the student means, I might accept this question, okay? So articles are usually not counted really as important errors, you know, as bad errors. A very important point is the last point here. The students are given 20 seconds for each question, for one question, yeah? So you understand that 20 seconds is a long period of time. I mean, in 20 seconds, you can formulate one question many times. And this is what sometimes happens with students. Like they say their version of a question, and then because they're stressed, because they're hesitating, they self-correct, and then they self-correct again, and then they self-correct again, okay? And you can sometimes hear like 5 versions of the same question in 20 seconds. The problem is that the experts are going to accept the last version only. Even if there was a right version, one of the 5 that I've heard, yeah? If it's not the last one, I'm not going to accept it. And I think that this is something students should know. So it's better to think a bit longer and then formulate a good version, rather than say 5, hoping that one of them is going to be correct, okay? So this is very, very, very important. Only the last version is going to be accepted, okay? I'm going to look at the questions in the chat box. So the first one is still on task 1. Can we read ourselves if there is no listening track, if there is no audio? Yes, you can. We've said that. I'd record your voice. Yeah, you can use your phone, just record your voice, because it's nice to replay the audio. You understand? You will have to replay the audio for activity 1, yeah, for silent shadowing. That's why, of course, you can use your own voice, but record yourself so that you can go to the beginning and replay it many times, yeah. Or your colleagues, use your colleagues. I keep using my friends and colleagues. Should we use synonyms in task 2? Once again, the students don't have to paraphrase the points that are given in the task, okay? But they have to make sense, the questions, and they have to be grammatically correct. So periphrasis, rephrasing is not required here. If there is no context in question 1, then this question is given a 0, not the whole task. Right, yes, Natalia, each of the questions is assessed separately. So you can get 5 points all in all, 1 point for each question. So if one question is incorrect and all the other questions are fine, the student gets 4 points. So each of the questions are assessed separately. So yeah, not the whole task, definitely. Someone says, I can't see the name, that there's no sound. Do you all have the sound? Can you hear me now? Yeah, can you just put a plus if the sound isn't? Yeah, so probably it's just something is wrong with your connection. I'm sorry. Maybe leave the room and come back again. Yeah. All right, so have you got any other questions on task 2? Because I don't think it's very difficult, seriously. It's quite straightforward. The students don't have to say anything, just record 5 direct questions into the computer. That's it. That's why we're not going to really talk about any special activities for this one. I think what can help is just asking your students to ask different kinds of questions a lot, because, you know, they tend to have problems with questions, and it's just practice, nothing else. Tag questions, good idea. It's possible to ask yes/no questions, alternative questions, tag questions, if they make sense in this situation. So, or special questions here as well. So any kinds of direct questions are fine if they make sense, okay? So if I can't understand why there is a tag question, or the intonation goes down, which means that it's not a real question, not a genuine question, then it might affect the meaning, okay? But there is no requirement that they have to be yes/no questions or special questions only. So could be alternative questions with or in the middle, could be tag questions. But I always try to keep it simple with task 2, okay? Just to avoid errors there, because quite a lot of students also make questions with tags. Intonation is not important. In this task, no. I mean, of course, we want to our students to speak better, but I can tell you, if generally your students speak well and they think about intonation, it's going to be evident in this task, but it's not really assessed in task 2. The only reason why intonation might cause a problem is when it's a tag question, but the intonation goes down, because in this situation, it's not a question, okay? It's not a real question asking for information, but the task says questions asking for information. So if the intonation of tag question goes down, it means that the student doesn't do the task, which is already a serious violation here, right? Is it a mistake if the questions are indirect? So once again, indirect questions are accepted, but only if they are grammatically correct, if the word order in this question is correct. But I wouldn't go there. I always stress, talking to my students, that please ask direct questions, because when they're stressed, they tend to make errors, and indirect questions are problematic even with teachers, not only with students. We all know about them, yeah? And when you're stressed and other people are talking around, because it's quite noisy, okay, when they record themselves, there are more opportunities for errors. That's why I wouldn't go there. I would ask the students, while I'm preparing them, to ask direct questions, seriously, to avoid errors. But well-formed indirect questions are accepted, okay? They don't happen that often. All right, Hello, Yelena. We're moving on, and task 3. Yeah, so here's the task. And again, we'll just quickly go through what the task is about. There are 3 questions. The students have to choose one. Imagine it's a photo from their photo album and talk on it. Yeah, so it's a short monologue. And while they're talking on it, they need, again, important, to cover all the points that are given in the task. Yeah, so it's important to cover all the points that the task suggests, because if they don't, it means that they don't achieve the communicative aim, right, of the task. A minute and a half to prepare, maximum 2 minutes for the monologue. So they have to finish their monologue in 2 minutes, otherwise the recording will stop, okay? So you can see the points there, when and where. This is quite a problematic point, by the way, because as 2 questions are in 1 point, where and when, very often one of them is missing. Yeah, so the student says when or where, but forgets the second part. So please make sure that both things are said. So they need to mention the place and the time when the photo was taken. What or who is in the photo? Well, this is quite straightforward. What is happening? Okay, so they need to describe some actions that they can see in the picture. The people in the picture are wearing bright clothes is not an action, just in case, okay? Because it just describes the clothes that you can see in the picture, yeah? So the people are wearing bright clothes. If it's the only sentence in present continuous, which seemingly describes an action, it means that point 3 is not covered, okay? Because it's not an action. If a student says something like, the people in the picture are smiling at the camera, it's an action, or they're posing to the photographer is an action, okay? They're talking, drawing, whatever, they're all actions, but they're wearing bright clothes is not, okay? Because there is no action there. Just an important little thing. Why you keep the photo in your album, yeah, and why you decided to show the picture to your friend. So there's the last 2 points, but they're sort of, I think, quite clear. Enjoying, Irina is asking, is it an action? Depending on the context, strictly it's not, okay, because it just shows that they're happy to be doing what they're doing. But I think that if you say the students are, sorry, the people in the picture are enjoying the boat trip, maybe it's a good idea to say that in the picture you can see that the people are boating and they're really enjoying it. So I'd still mention something they're doing because they're enjoying it. It's more about their attitude, right? Rather than what they're doing. Like I can't imagine enjoying as an action. So I wouldn't risk. Some experts would say, okay, if everything else is perfect, but strictly it's not an action. Okay, so I'd say something else. All right, so this is about the requirements. Yeah, so you need to start. I've chosen photo number 1. It's a technical phrase. It's not included in the word in the count.
Ой, ты меня срочки надела. Какая ты умничка.
I'm sorry, could you please turn off the mic? Thank you very much. Yeah, that was lovely, but too loud. So the phrase, I've chosen photo number 1, is a technical phrase. So the expert is not going to count it, okay? And then the students also have to introduce their little monologue. The introduction is anything they say which is not covered by the points of the task, but it has to be logical, okay? So it has to be a logical introduction. So there could be something like, I've chosen picture number 1, it's not counted, and I say, I think it's one of my most favorite pictures, or it's one of the most favorite pictures I've taken. And then you can logically say, I took it 2 years ago. Yeah, I think it was in summer, and we were traveling around the Czech Republic, whatever, right? So that it could be just one sentence which logically introduces the rest of the monologue. Please turn off the mic. Another thing that it's important to conclude the monologue, yeah, with some sort of a wrap up, the conclusion. And again, it has to be just one sentence which logically wraps up the talk. It doesn't have to be, that's all I wanted to say, okay? It is acceptable, this phrase, it's fine, but it could be something completely different, like, well, I think this is it. Thanks very much for listening. Again, it's also a way to wrap up the talk, as it's not covered here by the points, and I understand that the student has finished. Okay, so any logical way of wrapping up the talk, right, is fine. What if the answer is longer than 15 sentences, but still within 2 minutes? It's fine, Daisy. Yeah, it's fine, absolutely. But there is one little thing. When we count the sentences, yeah, I wanted to talk about how we do that. We count only something that is informative. So if a student, for example, repeats the same idea twice, I'm going to count it only once. Okay, that's important. So you can't repeat the same things. And there is another thing, which is very, very important. The students can't really describe something which we can't see in the picture. Okay, so I'll go back to the previous slide just to have a look at the pictures. For example, if we look at the first picture where you can see a dad probably with a beautiful daughter and a Christmas tree in the background, yeah? So if I say something like, I am taking a photo, I wouldn't really say it because we can't see it in the picture, right? So it's not part of the task, yeah? So the student has to describe just something that they can see in the picture. This is important because sometimes they sort of start telling a topic, you know, like Christmas is an important tradition in our family. Yeah, we very often sit down around the Christmas table and enjoy our time together. This is what you don't want to hear in this task. Okay, and these sentences are not going to be counted by the expert. Okay, so only the information that is part of the task and that is given here in the points, and only something that the picture shows, all right, when you describe it. That's important. Right, on the next slide, you can see just some data, numbers. Task achievement, that's the communicative aim. If all the points are covered, then the students can get maximum 3 points. 2 for organization. That's why we have to remember that our monologue has to be logical, you know, with some introductory phrases and links between the different points. The introduction, the conclusion should be there, and then 2 points for the language, right? Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. Again, if there are more than 5 errors, then the students are going to get a 0. But again, you can look at the requirements in detail on the FIPI website. Just check them there because we're not going to talk about them in detail. It's not the main point today. Right, I want to show you, because some of you said at the beginning that one of the problems that the students face with tasks 3 and 4 is that they need a model, they need a template. So I'm going to show you the template that I very often use with my students. But before, let me answer the question in the chat box. Is it okay to give the people in the picture names? This is my dad and my little sister. Yeah, well, no, not names. Yeah, but you say who they are. Yes, I think it's okay because you see the task itself says that it's your picture. So it means that you're supposed to know who these people are. That's why, of course, it's okay to say that this is my dad this is my little sister, this is my family, or these people are my friends. It's all fine. The only thing we should be careful with is when you say something which can't be true. Yeah. So, for example, there is a girl in the picture, and I can hear a boy talking. Okay. And the boy says, you can see me in the picture 5 years ago. Things happen, okay? So this kind of answer is going to be penalized, because if I can hear a boy speaking and there's a girl in the picture and the person says that it's him, then, you know, it's definitely a problem. It's like the student is describing a different picture. If pupils do not understand the age, fine, it's not a problem at all. I mean, unless it's very, very strange, it's sort of accepted. Okay, we understand. I mean, an old man, if there is a person who is like over 50, fine, but if there is a teenager there, but the speaker says there's an old man, then it is a problem. Yeah, so common sense, okay? Because experts are also people, they understand, right, this is weird. But if it's more or less true, then nobody's going to be very strict here. But it's important not to make factual errors there, okay? Like a girl and a boy. There was a long debate whether to accept things like, you can see my wife in the picture. Because if there is a, you know, a young lady, you can sometimes hear in the picture, there's my wife standing in the kitchen. And well, it's not the best thing to do, I'd say, but technically it has to be accepted, because people take this exam not only right after school, they can take this exam later. And if you're 18 plus, you might well be married. Okay, so that's why probably it's going to be accepted. Yeah, so we always have to switch on, you know, common sense and think, well, all right, okay, let it be so. What if a student says less than 12 sentences, Galina asks. It means that it's not the main criterion, yeah, but if there are less than 12 sentences, it means that the student can't get 3 for the communicative purpose. Because if you look at the requirements on the FIPI website, it says that 3 means between 12 and 15 sentences. So if there are fewer sentences, it's not 3 anymore, it's going to be 2, 1, or, you know, depending on the number of phrases. How do we count sentences? Because, I mean, it's not a written text, okay? So it's much more difficult to actually count the sentences. A sentence is a subject and the verb and a finished idea, okay? That's why I always say it's a good idea to speak in shorter sentences rather than one long sentence, okay? So I'm going to show it to you using my template, okay? So look here, it's going to be on 2 slides. This is a template which I think works quite nicely for task 3, yeah? And you see that the introductions here in bold, again, it could be anything, but it's just a possibility. I think it's one of the best pictures I've ever taken. And you see that then below, you've got sort of the beginnings of the sentences, the introductory phrases, and they go like 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, yeah, or 3, 3, 3. The thing is that a person, a student, has to say between 12 and 15 sentences. But when you're thinking about the meaning, right, about the picture and all the things at once, it's very difficult for a student to concentrate on the number of sentences they're saying. I mean, it's very difficult to count at the same time. That's why I always say, try to say 3 things on the first point, 2 or 3 things on the second point, 2 or 3 things in the third point, and so on and so forth. So it's much easier to control the number of sentences for a student when they think about one point at a time, instead of control themselves. Okay, so I've said it's the first thing in point 1, the second thing in point 1, the third thing in point 1. And if you count the points in this task, let me go back to them. Yeah, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points they have to cover, plus the introduction and the conclusion, which are counted. If a student says 3 points, 3 or 2 sentences on each point, it's definitely more than 12. Okay, so this is like a good check. When I start speaking, I'm nervous and I can't control myself. And here in this template, you can see how it could be done. So when and where, the first point, I'm going to answer Irina's question in a second. I took this photo, let's say 1 year ago, 3 months ago, and could be a place, yeah, in my friend's house, whatever. I mean, could be a different thing, could be a city, a town, whatever. I believe it was spring, yeah. Also when, but you just add another phrase here. At that time, you know, I was traveling around Prague with my dad, but it has to be a place or a time. I think place, yeah. There are a few things you can see in the photo. So we need bridges between our ideas because organization of the text is also assessed. That's why I just suggest a bridge, which is a logical one, and it could be memorized. You don't want your student to sound as if they're, you know, telling a topic, but some introductory phrases could be memorized because then the students will be able to concentrate on the content more. And then again, first of all, and you've got some helpful phrases here, yeah? You can see my friend Peter in the foreground. In the background, you can notice blah, blah, blah. On the left and the right, there is, there are. So it's good to change the phrases, yeah, that you use to describe the pictures. So teach your students to describe as many things as they can see, because sometimes they just can't see, you know. So the people, the nature in the background, the objects around. In this way, they will always find something to say, you know, covering the question what or who. Then the actions, yeah. So again, it could be a nice introductory phrase, something like, as you can see, they are smiling at the camera, posing to the photographer, playing snowballs, whatever. And then again, short sentences, subject, verb, action, and 2 or 3 points here. Number 4, yeah, I keep this photo in my album because I think it, again, and then they say whatever. And also some suggestions for developing the answer. And again, you see 4, 4, 4. And 5, 5, 5 for the last point, why they decided to show this picture to their friend. Important, the expert is their friend, okay? Which is a questionable thing to say, but still. So when they cover point 5, they have to say, I decided to show this picture to you, not to my friend, okay? But to you, as I thought you might like this short because it's beautiful. So again, they could memorize the first sentence and then add something else. That's all I wanted to say. That's it. Thanks very much for listening, and so on. Going back to number 4. I keep this photo in my album because I think it's a beautiful picture. If you didn't say it in the introduction, you don't want to repeat yourself, because it makes me feel really good. Yeah, I really enjoy showing it to my friends and my family who come to see me. And I also like what my friend looks like in this picture, what our garden looks like in the picture, yeah, what the beautiful city of Prague looks like in this picture. You know, so some suggestions which also allow quite a lot of variety, because again, it can't be a topic, okay? It has to be a live monologue. But it's always a good idea to memorize the introduction, the conclusion, the bridges between the points, and some introductory phrases, because then the students will have to, you know, think about them during the exam, which is helpful. They're all stressed. Okay, there are a couple of other questions in the chat, so I'm going to go there before we move on. Irina asks, we can't swap where and when, can we? It doesn't sound natural. If it's, I mean, you could. I don't think it's a big problem, to be honest. You could say, let me go back to number one. I took this picture in Prague 2 years ago. I mean, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. As long as it's logical, it's fine. Okay. What I wouldn't do if I were a student, I wouldn't cover the points in a different order. Let's say, first you say who's in the photo, then you say when the picture was taken, yeah? So I wouldn't do that because this might affect the logic. And second thing, you know, the experts could miss it, because if it's the 80th monologue they're listening to, which happens, they can just miss a piece of information if it's in the wrong place. See what I mean? So I would cover the points in the order they're here. But when and where, Irina says Verbitskaya was talking about it. Yeah, but see, it pretty much depends. I mean, if you say the picture was taken 2 years ago, we were traveling around Prague that I think it's fine. Maybe, you know, I need to listen to Verbitskaya again to sort of remember what exactly she was talking about. But I mean, if it's just the first point, where and when, and you first mentioned the place, then the time, place, I don't think it will affect the logic that much. See? So as long as it's logical and clear, it should be fine. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Is it possible to find the videos on YouTube or somewhere where students do speaking parts? I haven't seen them. I've got my own recordings of my students, and this is actually a very good point, Taisia, because do you remember we said that when you teach your student to do something, like with task 1, it's always good to look at a model. So when we start working on task 3, I usually let my students listen to the recording of my other student doing this task. But usually I record the students for the model purposes in May when they're quite comfortable. They listen to what their answer should sound like. Yeah, but I haven't seen them on YouTube, to be honest, because you need a permission to record a student. That's the thing, and not all the students are happy to do that. But if you're interested, just let me know. You will see my email at the end of the talk today, and I'll try to persuade my new student to do it for you because she's an Instagram girl, so she'll be fine. There are examples in exam books, but again, there is a very easy way, simple way to record an example. Okay, just record yourself or your colleague doing this task. It's very easy. Okay, and use it as a model. It's the easiest thing to do, and you're going to have a track in a few seconds. And I don't know about you, but my colleagues and I often do that. They say, look, I need a track for this. And we ask each other to record it, following all the requirements, or ask a good student to do that. Because I mean, you need a good model, okay? Someone who can do it successfully. Easy peasy, takes 3 minutes. So you don't have to look for ready-made recordings, okay? It's quite straightforward. And here's the template. Okay. Task 4 very quickly, because the requirements are very similar to task 3. Yeah, I mean, also 14 points. I'll go to the requirements for a second. Also 3 for the task achievement, 2 for the organization and the language, 12, 15 phrases, same principles of counting. All the points have to be covered. Conclusion and introduction, linkers, organization. So the main requirements are the same. It's just that the task itself is different. Yeah. So here they need to compare and contrast 2 photographs. And it's important here not to talk for a long time about each photograph separately. So they always have to go from the first one to the second one, even if they give a brief description. Yeah. So they could start saying something like, I can see two pictures in front of me and I'd like to compare and contrast them. And it's always a good idea to mention the topic at the beginning, like they all show different kinds of activities, or yeah, leisure time activities. And then when the student gives a brief description, it's important to go there and back all the time. Like in the first picture, we can see a young woman cooking in the kitchen, while in the second picture, we can see a woman snowboarding outside. Yeah, in the first picture, the first picture was taken in the kitchen. Yeah, and whereas the second picture was taken outside. So you always switch between them. And here are again the main criteria. We're going to look at the template for task 4 in a second, but there is a question from Marina here. In the picture, you can see my family standing in front of the mountain and smiling. If students say this in the second question, do they lose points, or the action sentences are not counted? Mountain. I see what you mean, Marina, that here you sort of combine who and what they're doing. Yeah, you can see my family standing in front of the mountain and smiling. I would count it as a sentence covering both points, who and doing what, but notice that it's one phrase, one sentence, okay? So in terms of the meaning, it's fine, because smiling is an action, standing is an action, and you say my family. In terms of the number of sentences, it's only one, okay? Because there is one subject, one verb, you can see, yeah? So it's gonna be one sentence. Okay, task 4 template. Again, you can see an introduction. Again, you could change it slightly, it doesn't matter much. But probably this is the one that works anyway. Yeah, and so then you say, let me start with picture number 1. And again, you see that this template is organized in a similar way. Notice it's not very fixed, yeah, because you need a template that would work with different pictures. So there are introductory phrases there, but you don't want a very, 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 very fixed template, because then it sounds like a ready-made topic, and you don't want that. Notice that task 4 is considered to be an advanced level task. So here the student should use some variety of language. Yeah, so they should show that they're able to paraphrase, to use synonyms. That's why if you look at the template, you can see some variety. Yeah, like you can see, we can see there is, there are, they have a lot in common, another thing in common. There are some differences too. Yes, we did some slightly different structures. Unlike in the second picture, in the first picture, you can see, and so on. Yeah. So this is basically the format, the template. If you've got any questions about tasks 3 and 4 in terms of the format, let me know now, okay? Because then we're going to move on to do some activities that might be useful for these tasks. No questions, yeah? Okay. Probably one more thing which I'd like to mention about task 4 is that when the students are comparing the pictures and when they're saying what the pictures have in common, what is different between them, it's important to categorize the similarities and differences. So they're not just saying, let me go back to the pictures to make it visual. They're not just saying, something like, in the first picture, the woman is wearing a top and shorts, while in the second picture, the young lady is wearing a snowboarding suit, yeah? You have to say, another difference between these two pictures is the clothes the girls are wearing. So first you categorize the difference. You say what is different, and then you explain. Yeah. So another difference, or the first difference between these two pictures is the clothes the girls are wearing. Yeah. The first lady is wearing shorts and a top, while the second one is wearing a snowboarding suit. Another difference between these two pictures is the what, the place, yeah? If you didn't talk about it at the beginning that much, right? The first picture was taken inside, the second picture was taken outside. So say place, clothes are different, yeah? What else? Here, the nature of the activity. So they could say, and finally, the nature of the leisure activity is different. The first activity is quite passive. It doesn't require a lot of energy. While the second one is a sporting activity. So, you know, it requires a lot of physical strength and blah, blah, whatever. So you categorize the differences. Same with similarities, yeah? So when we look at the two pictures, we can see that the girls' feelings are similar. Feelings, we categorize the similarity. And then the student explains, they both seem to be happy doing these activities. Another similarity is the gender, right? They're both girls. So this is probably a tricky point. If they do not categorize, it's not, they might be penalized, okay? Maybe not. If everything else is very, very good, they will not be penalized, I think, by most experts, but I prefer not to take risks because you see different experts might look slightly differently at the criteria, although they've got the same criteria, they're interpreted slightly differently. But this is what Verbitskaya said as well in terms of categorizing the differences and similarities. So I would teach at least my students to do that because it's, you know, sort of required by this task, okay? Okay, we move on. Keep asking questions if you suddenly realize you forgot to ask something. And we have a few more minutes for some other useful activities. And the first activity, which I think is very helpful to develop some useful skills for task 3 and 4, namely the ability to describe the picture, the ability to notice what is in the picture, because you know, it doesn't always happen. Noticing is also a skill. And the ability to categorize and sort of put things together is called 10-second focus. And I'd like us to do this task together now, if you don't mind, okay? But again, I can't control you, so please be mature. So we need student A, student B, and student C. Okay, so could you please now decide in your head whether you are student A, student B, or student C? A, B, or C. Decide who you are. Yeah? You should know who you are, A, B, and C. Okay, now I'm going to talk to A, B, and C students separately. Okay, please follow my instructions, right? So now, could only students A look at the screen? Okay, students B and C, please close your eyes. Sitting in front of your computer. So only students A are looking at the screen. You're going to have 10 seconds to look at a picture and memorize as much as possible, okay? Only students A are looking, B's and C's are sitting with their eyes closed. Ready? Don't cheat. Students A, 10 seconds. Dun. Now everybody close your eyes, please. Sorry, but it's very, very convenient to do it online, but still close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. I'll tell you when to open. Now, students B, can you please, only B's, open your eyes, look at this picture for 10 seconds and try to memorize as much as you can. 10 seconds, only B's. Someone's mic is on. Turn it off. Turn off your mic. Thank you. Ding, okay? Now everybody close your eyes again. Everybody. I know some of you are cheating, but try not to. And finally, only students C, open your eyes, okay? Only students C. Again, look at this picture for 10 seconds. Could you please turn off your mic if it's not off, because we can all hear some background noise. 10 seconds, only C's. Okay, now everybody close your eyes. And everybody open your eyes. I'm very sorry, but can I ask someone whose mic is on to turn it off, because the background noise is very, very loud. Please check your microphone now. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I hope you're all sitting with your eyes open already. I'm very sorry. Could you please turn off your microphone? Yeah, I could see that there are some mics that are on. Please turn off your mic. Turn off your mic. Thank you very much. Okay, so now in the chat box, all together, students A, B, and C, could you please sort of tell each other what you could see in your pictures, okay? Yeah, so that all of you know what everybody could see on all the 3 pictures, okay? So in the chat, tell each other quickly what you could see in the pictures. So students A are telling students B and C, students B are telling students A and C, students C are telling the other students, okay? So right now you can just, yeah, you're doing the right thing. Just bullet point a few things. Two girls, a girl's a jug, a glass of fields, 2 little toddler girls in the foreground. Remember the actions, okay? Also mention what the people were doing. Because the more detailed it is, the better. Remember, I asked you to memorize as much as possible. Okay, thank you. Galina is giving a glass of milk to another girl, drinking juice. I can't see any B students. Judging by the description, there were only A students and C students in our company. Thank you very much, Natalia. So a boy lying on the street, a man with a tattoo tries to help. Yeah. Okay, right. Well done. We have some ideas, okay? And I'm going to show you all the pictures now. So here's picture 1, picture 2, and picture 3. Thank you, Anya. That's a very, very good description. So after the students have tried to put everything together, and you understand here when they're talking to each other and describing what they could see in the pictures, you're actually practicing picture descriptions, right? You can also remind the students a few phrases that we use, like in the foreground and the background, present continuous, blah, 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 before this activity, yeah? So while they're talking to each other, they're practicing some of the skills required for picture description in tasks 3 and 4. But then the next step would be, after they've seen all the pictures together, to ask them to think which topic all these pictures are united by, okay? So could you try to formulate the topic for all these 3 pictures? One topic for helping. Thank you, Svetlana. Anything else? Kindness, caring. Nice. Yeah. Basically, it was about kindness. Okay. So, but all the things you're saying are very nice, like helping each other, kindness, caring, empathy. This is an important part of the task. Okay. So when the students are trying to put all the 3 pictures together, they're sort of learning to categorize things, to analyze things, to find the right word for what is in the picture. And this is actually what they have to do in task 4, you understood, yeah? When they say the first difference between these two pictures is clothes or feelings or something else, weather, yeah? So you always need to find one good word putting together the things that you can see in the pictures. This is also a very, very nice skill for a completely different module of the exam, which is writing, okay? And if you like, you can actually go from here, and after the students have formulated something that these pictures have in common, the topic the pictures have in common, you can formulate the topic of an essay, all right? And then use these pictures to stimulate the arguments, okay? Like you can see that these pictures show different acts of kindness, yeah? And they could also help to formulate the arguments for an essay. But of course, we're not going to talk about essays now because you're going to do it later today, yeah? The task which could also extend this activity is this one, yeah? So as I said, first you could formulate the topic for a future essay if you like kindness doesn't exist in the modern world, Budum's statement. And or you could continue talking about the pictures now with all the students looking at all the 3 pictures and formulate a task which is similar to task 4 of the exam. Give a brief description, blah, blah, say what the pictures have in common, say in what way they're different, and then just formulate something that the students have to talk about, yeah? So which of the manifestations, which of the acts of kindness you find more important, explain why, yeah? So the first one is more for writing. When you go from this discussion of the pictures and formulating the common topic to the topic of an essay, and you can just go on working on it, or you create a task which in format is similar to task 4 of the oral part and work on it a bit more, yeah? Notice could be any pictures, and again they could be combined so that you've got one topic for the oral part and later for the written part. So again, you are saving time here. The pictures could be, I'll go back to the procedure, could be like that. Woo, you know, woohoo. And could be used to stimulate a written task, as we said, you know, even on a difficult topic like that, yeah? So pictures are always nice because, you know, they're clear, they're visual, they're material, and they're very good for idea generation. And we said the students very often don't know what to say, not only how to put it in English, yeah, but what to say. So here's a nice activity, 10-second focus. I say it's nice because I think it's working, at least seemed to be very useful for my students. You can have a look at the procedure once again. Okay, if you've got any questions, you can always type them in the chat, you remember? And we have just 2 minutes before a very quick Q&A for me to show you one more activity, tell you about it, because we're not going to do it, but it's sort of clear. This activity is called 432, and it solves the problem of students finding it very difficult to say their monologue within 2 minutes. Yeah. So basically, the idea is that first you give the students 4 minutes for this exam task, task 3 or task 4. Then you do the second round, okay? But you give them 3 minutes now. So they have to do the same task, same pictures, but they have only 3 minutes. And then you do the third round of the task, but you ask the students to squeeze it and do the same in 2 minutes. Yeah, so notice it's the same monologue, the same picture, the same task. You just allow the students to do it 3 times in a row. And of course, after each round, you might want to give some feedback in terms of the meaning, points covered, not covered, introduction, conclusion, organization, language. And then every time, every new round is going to show a better quality. Okay, yeah. So for example, yeah, you could use the same pictures after the 10-second focus and work on them like in task 3. Choose one, do your monologue, use the template, but first you've got only 4 minutes, 3 minutes, and then 2 minutes. Okay, so this is basically it. This is what I wanted to show you, to tell you. And here in this slide, you can see a few conclusions that probably summarize what we've talked about and tried today. Probably the only point we haven't focused on is recording your students. I always think it's a good idea to record your students using your phone or their phone, because they're getting used to being recorded, and you remember that they're going to be recorded into the computer. We have 5 minutes left. Yeah, I'm going to show you my contact details where you can contact me. You can see my email, and also my second ego is elephant. You know that we do quite a lot of elephant projects, courses for teachers in schools with Zhenya Bakin. So if you're interested, you can follow these links or again contact me about them. Have you got any other questions or comments? We have about 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes maximum. Any questions or comments? Anything? Thank you very much, Marina. So I'm still going to wait for a couple of minutes. If you want me to go back somewhere, let me know. Thank you very much. Okay, I think there are no questions. Task 4, sorry, Anna. In task 4, should we use more complex grammar lexes? Well, generally, yes, because it's an advanced level task, but I would include some interesting phrases into the template, Anna, because it's very difficult for the students to come up with nice descriptions there. I mean, it's good to practice it, obviously. You know, I always ask my students to, you know, use some nice adjectives, interesting adjectives when they describe pictures and so on. I always stress that it's good to use adverbs before verbs, adjectives before nouns, you know, to modals, making assumptions, distancing, you know, all these things are good and it's good to work on them. But the thing is that you could also include a couple of things like modal verbs for assumptions right into the template, okay? And then it would make the whole thing easier. Ira asks to go back to the procedure slide, but which activity? The last one. Can you recommend some books for preparation? Not really, because I use different books, okay? I just mix them. I mix materials, and I really prefer to use one task for different purposes to exploit it a lot, okay? So this is what I do. Thank you very much, yeah. If you have more questions, you can keep writing in the chat later on. I'm going to stay for a while, and thank you very, very much. Okay, so I'm going to stop the demonstration. Didn't. This is it, I think. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you.
Наташа, спасибо большое. Да, Наташ, у нас сейчас онлайн 30 человек. Назови, пожалуйста, любое число для розыгрыша наших ближайших онлайн-курсов. Это 29 марта Teaching Reloaded и 19 апреля это Working with Young Learners. Вот мы будем разыгрывать эти 2 онлайн-курса на выбор. Назови, пожалуйста, число от 1 до 30.
17.
17. Прекрасно. Участница или участник под номером 17. Чуть попозже я с вами свяжусь и напишу приятную новость. То, что вы являетесь...
Ничего личного, простите.
Да, спасибо, Наташ, большое, было очень познавательно. Очень...
Спасибо вам большое за приглашение и всем участникам